This is Cutting Edge of Voter Reg, Election-Winning Future Tech, Panel 2. Participants are Jeremy Smith, CEO of CiviTech, Naseem Makiya, founder and CEO of Impactive, Shion Deysarkar, co-founder and CEO of Unified, and Cory Alpert, Field Team 6 Chief Strategist. The panel is moderated by Lehr, a partner with Higher Ground Labs.
All right, Jeremy, I'm going to move on to you now. Hey, so Jeremy, are you in Texas now?
I am. I'm here in Austin, Texas, where I see we have lots of folks from all across the state. And I think I dressed appropriately for this panel because somehow this looks like a digital shirt, even though I swear it is just blue lines and weird lighting. So you're welcome.
Well, that's great. I hope things are going well. And if South by Southwest is going on, that there's not too much traffic and things are going great. I know it's a busy time in Austin. So thanks for hopping on with us. So let's talk CiviTech. I know CiviTech has such a unique and thorough approach to voter registration, particularly because it involves multiple forms of voter contact, including direct mail and texting. Can you tell us more about that and how successful that's been?
Yeah, absolutely. So our view was started from how do we actually help people, like the actual voters? How do we help them get through the process, particularly in states that have obstructive or oppressive systems that make it very hard to register or to vote? And so I mentioned this, but my co-founder, Madeline Eden, is here, and the two of us created a nonprofit in Texas back in 2018 that was designed to address this problem in Texas, where we have a paradigm that makes it very hard for organizations and volunteers to help people register. And so we wanted to create ways of reaching people in a state without any online voter registration and with a lot of obstructions. So we were really focused on what is the actual experience of people. So most families do not own printers. Most people do not have stamps or envelopes in their home and easily available and accessible. And most of them don't know the rules about voter registration, as it varies between 3,300 counties in America. And they shouldn't have to. That is a dumb paradigm to the idea that every citizen gets to vote. And so we looked at how can we solve that? How can we help organizers connect things like the postal system, print shops, databases, and the tools, the supercomputer that everyone is carrying in their pocket, and essentially make these accessible. And so really the fundamental idea came out of how do we move data from any capacity, whether it's text or mail or in person or a digital form, into the world of how does a voter now get registered? And so every idea we've had backs up from that starting point. And by making it flexible from the beginning, it's allowed us to expand access to many different tools over time. And what we've found so far is that the most efficient way to register net Democratic votes per dollar is actually by mailing people and following up with choice, following up with a timely text message after you have mailed someone, a door or a visit from someone in their neighborhood in the week after they've been mailed. Those programs work extremely well. And for everybody to think about in general politics, if you spam someone a piece of mail and you spam them a text that tells them you mailed them, it doesn't feel like spam as much anymore because they're like, you really did mail me. And for some reason, if you send two pieces of interlocking spam, it somehow perversely makes a little bit more of a warm touch, which I think is a good insight in general for lots of things that we do. And we find that it is more encouraging. It makes them feel more like they trust it a little bit more. And so that is really like the kind of core idea behind all of this is if you run a digital flow, there should be follow-up in email and text and a person that you can call who can answer these things. And so CiviTech has really built up a wide variety of tools that are meant to address what it is like to be a voter in an impractical system. And then we try to make that available to all of you who do the work actually of getting out there and disseminating it. And that's essentially our approach.
I love that, Jeremy, especially because you're orienting the program around the voter's experience and what's best and most sensible and trust building for them versus what we can push out sometimes, which is all we have the capacity for. But as we have more data to check back about what's working, we can see that orienting around the voter's experience is much more powerful. So I love the direction that that's going. So CiviTech is also one of the major data vendors out there, and you're one of the few that provides lists of college students. Notoriously difficult data, it's hard to compile, students move around a lot. So how do you make sure that it's reliable given all of these kind of wild cards that you see with college students?
Yeah. So again, this is an early idea when a volunteer in South Texas on the border brought a list of every teacher in the state of Texas to me and Maddie Eden, and was like, "Can you do something with this?" It was a list of 550,000 public school employees. And we matched it to the voter file. And we found that here's 180,000 people with their current address as of this semester who are not registered to vote. And that was just a volunteer who had obtained this. And so we went back and asked, "How did you get this?" And they were like, "Oh, I just requested it. I filed a FOIA." And they're like, "You can just do that? You can get people's names and addresses." And so what we have done since is expanded that concept to tens of thousands of partnerships, data requests. So we work with nonprofits who work with colleges and HBCUs. We work with like parties and other apparatus. We work with direct records requests of tens of thousands of public agencies, licensing bureaus, and like college students in particular, college directories. And by pulling together all that information on a regular cadence every semester, we are updating it. And we are looking for signs that somebody has recently enrolled or has moved. And we also have learned to look for things like, okay, this is a list of people at the university's like Main Street address. That's not useful to people. So we need to, that can be used by organizations that are going through the dorm room, like NextGen, and maybe Field Team 6, I believe, has done similar like this. Essentially on the ground groups can work off of a list, and that is it's a denominator for them to check against their total capacity. But for most people, we're trying, especially during the pandemic, we were trying to reach people through mail and text message. And so we needed to provide that information in a different way. And so I think that is, it is a hard problem. It takes multiple people on a research team, and it takes many data engineers and data scientists to pull. Like we get CDs and thumb drives and pictures of PDFs mailed to us, and we have to turn all of that into a database that all of you can use. And so it has taken years to build up the quality of that. But that first volunteer's idea, like with one list, has become a database of more than 40 million people that are additive records to the voter file. And the biggest thing I want everyone to take away is that the voter file is not a monolith. It is not a complete list of Americans. It is not everyone who is eligible to vote. And it comes from thousands of sources. So we have to be thinking about ways to take a list of everyone and break it down into communities and leverage the fact that all of us know more about our own community than anybody sitting in a data room like doing this work. And so I encourage all of you to think about the data that way.
Oh, that's fantastic. And there's so many talented volunteers and organizers in the room. It's great to hear that bringing these ideas forward can lead to these game-changing innovations. It's just fantastic. And so the database you're talking about here is the PIR database, right? Public Information Records. Can you share a couple more words about some of the differences of the members in that database, the demographics that are currently comprised in it versus some of the other lists, and how we should be thinking about that when we approach a voter reg?
Yes, the idea is essentially we're trying to reframe a lot of our political groups around the idea of a people file and not a voter file, because we should be including more people. And when you are using VAN or something else, it is a list of the people who are already registered to vote in that county. And it does not take into account people who are turning 18, people who have moved in, people who are returning from prison and have paid their debts to society. And we need to be like, all of our marketing communications are leaving those people out. So we need to be intentional about supplementing that and rethinking the tools and the structures we use to make sure we are including a wider variety of the people who live in our communities. Because the biggest insight that we had is the Pew will do a survey every 2 years on why do people vote or register to vote, and why did they not? And the number one answer is that people don't trust the system. They don't trust either party. That's number one. Number two is they've never been asked. Nobody has ever talked to them. No one has ever communicated with them. They don't feel like they are the desired targets. And the third bucket of answers is people were unaware there was an election in the first place. They didn't know when or where or how or what ID to bring. They were intimidated by the process. And so that implies to me that we have two issues. One is voter education, and one is like trust building in communities. And I think these people are telling us, you're not talking to me, why would I vote for you? and our system is not showing them, and we're saying, well, they're not voting, why would we talk to them? And the problem with that is it's a circle that will never end. And so we are the ones who want to earn their votes. We have to do the work to go out and talk to them. And so we're trying to create information that otherwise is not available and make it easily accessible to all of you.
That's fantastic, Jeremy. I love this paradigm shift, and you've really hit on a couple of lightning rod pain points in our space that are areas for improvement. We've accomplished so much to date, and there's so much room to grow from here. And I really appreciate you sharing that vision and some of the paths that you're walking on to explore going there. It really shines a great light. So thank you, Jeremy. I appreciate it. All right. Naseem, I'm going to scoot over to you now. Hey, Naseem.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. All right, so let's talk Impactive. So Impactive is described as an all-in-one digital organizing hub. Can you give us an overview of the tools that Impactive offers to win elections and what types of orgs you partner with to accomplish this?
Absolutely, yeah. So Impactive is an all-in-one platform for building and mobilizing movements. So we offer everything you need to grow your supporter base and keep them engaged, whether for a specific election, upcoming legislation, voter registration, or just other advocacy. And we do this by providing technology and tools that make it easy to both build up that program and then manage it at a large scale. So a lot of the tooling is around texting, calling, canvassing, sharing content online, and really encouraging friends and families in your communities to participate and sort of trying to reach those trusted messengers that Jeremy was talking about. And we keep it kind of fun and engaging by allowing folks to kind of participate in teams, earn points, compete on leaderboards, and even sometimes win rewards, kind of gamifying the experience to make it a little competitive, just because it's important to have it be sort of a positive experience when volunteering, especially when some of these conversations can be frustrating. And so you'd be surprised how competitive people can get, even whether incentivized or not. In 2020, we were working on the Vote Joe app for the Biden-Harris campaign, and Women for Biden was at the top of the leaderboards. And all the other teams were trying so hard to reach the #1 spot, but they just couldn't do it in the end. But it was really fun to watch them try. And so people really do get into this stuff, even when it's just like points and stuff like that. And in terms of partners, we've had some amazing partners, Planned Parenthood, ACIU, the major Democratic committees at the national level, Stacey Abrams and Headcount, to name a few. And yeah, our approach is really just to work hand in hand closely with some of these larger umbrella organizations that have been doing the work in the field for decades, making sure to listen closely, often to their affiliates as well, or their chapters around the country in each state, and essentially build and iterate on our product in kind of collaboration with the stakeholders there to ensure we're building both lasting infrastructure for the movement and infrastructure that's driven by the folks doing the actual work. So we actually started with one tool focused on organizing your friends and family 6 years ago, and have kind of just expanded on that tool set ever since, based on the feedback and needs of some of those clients.
Naseem, that's great. I appreciate you sharing both the product features, how people band together, build community, and you kind of tap into our kind of instincts as people of where we want to be in competition, and Women for Biden locked it down, which is awesome. And then also the approach to the collaborations that result in political technology that's really effective. Close listening, collaborative product development, expanding tools based on what you hear from partners, which is so important for the technology builders to have insights from users. So we make sure the tools, are working properly. Just kudos for bringing that into every phase of Impactive's development. So you talked a little bit about some of the unique approaches to voter registration that are possible in Impactive with gamification. Can you share a little bit more about influencer collaboration and some of the results that you've seen from that as well?
Yeah, for sure. So our voter registration product has a bit of a twist to it. So while you can use it as kind of a standard check your registration tool to look up, or register to vote, and it's very practical for that, we're kind of most excited around the gamification that we've sort of wrapped around it. And the way it works is you can kind of set up as many teams as you want, really, and it could be kind of issue-based or geography-based. But one of our biggest use cases you mentioned is kind of influencers who are interested in helping to promote voter registration and get out the vote. And so each of those influencers essentially gets a custom page with their own graphics. They can kind of put their messaging, their colors to fit their brand. and optional incentives such as winning tickets to see them in concert or a trip to meet them in person. We've even given away a car. And everyone who checks their registration or otherwise participates in some way gets entered to win in this kind of sweepstakes. And not only do they get entered, but they get kind of a unique link that they can then use to get additional entries for themselves by working with friends and family or posting it online or really whatever communities they're a part of to check their registration as well. And so what you end up with is kind of this modern day email chain or sort of multi-level marketing program. I feel kind of old just saying those words. I'm sure there's a better term for it, but it's essentially a referral program for driving voter registration with a pretty cool prize at the end. And the results have just been amazing in terms of both volume and conversion rates. We found that kind of, I think Jerry mentioned this a little bit dynamic, but essentially it kind of softens the ask when you're asked to share something among friends that can kind of feel like, especially if it's around civic engagement or being more responsible, it can kind of feel like you're spending some of your social capital to make that ask. But with sweepstakes, it's sort of grounded in this, like they know that you're doing this to get an incentive. And so they know what you're getting out of it. And then they want to do it to get a ticket as well. And all of a sudden you've sort of tricked everyone into registering to vote. So yeah, it both has really good numbers, but it's also that kind of positive, fun campaign. We had an influencer give a surprise video call to a participant for all the amazing work she was doing, and her reaction was just priceless. I mean, she totally lost it when she saw the influencer. So, yeah.
This is great. I love how you're really tapping into people's motivations and building from there. It's so neat to see. And then just quickly, can you share a couple highlights from the Headcount partnership that took advantage of some of these features and just some of the great things that came out of 22 with that?
Yeah, for sure. It was such a pleasure to work with Headcount and Civic Nation last year. Headcount really went all in with Impactive early on. And so we got to do this kind of custom build for them. And they got, I mean, Harry Styles, Stephen Colbert, Billie Eilish, Kehlani, and a lot of folks that I don't even know, but probably should. They really got them committed to these initiatives, which isn't easy to do. And they even worked with some amazing brands like Ben & Jerry's, and the results were just crazy. I mean, Harry Styles in the first hour or so drove over 100,000 people to register, ultimately over 500,000 in total, and really strong conversion rates too from the influencer promotion. Because it's the influencers, because it's that trusted messenger that you follow and it's maybe a role model, the conversion rate was about 70% from influencer promotion. And because once folks have kind of checked their registration and signed up, you can then text them their unique link. You can follow up text, make sure that they didn't run into any issues, or just to then do GOTV later once they're registered. And so, there's a little bit more work to be done in terms of we're still getting the data on who did or didn't vote from last cycle. So we want to close the loop on that to make sure that, people actually did then go vote and weren't just in it for the incentives, but all signs kind of point to some really exciting results.
Naseem, it's so exciting. From the celebrities that I did recognize in that list, it was very impressive. A lot of just top influential A-listers. And it's wonderful to see an opportunity for celebs to also get involved in preserving the democracy that we all care so much about. So it's a beautiful two-way street there. Just congrats on all the innovative programming and a beautiful piece of technology. Congrats.
Thank you.
All right, Shion, last but not least, I'm so excited for our conversation. So let's just jump right in. Can you give us an introduction to Unified, your social network for organizers and activists, and everything it will be able to do?
Yeah, sure. So first of all, thanks everyone for having me here. Unified, we're building a social network for organizing and activism. What that means is that it's an entire social media platform specifically designed to cater to the needs of organizers and everyone from grassroots activists to large campaigns. A lot of the sort of inspiration behind the work came from some of the early digital relational work we did with Blue Squad, and seeing how the most success we had was when individuals sort of took control of their own efforts and their own advocacy and reached out to their friends, versus like being sort of directed by a specific campaign to do certain things or go down a list and target folks. So we saw that kind of behavior and saw how just in general, like social media is great at building community over different kinds of topics, and knowing that when organizing is at its best, it's driven through community organizing, serving the needs of the community. So we wanted to build a platform that helped organizers do that more effectively. So within Unified, it will in many ways function like a typical social media platform, like a Twitter or Instagram, where you can post content however you want. But we also introduce a new kind of content, which includes organizing actions. So you can actually create and share content that actually helps people register voters, contact elected officials, host events, message voters with specific messaging, all that kind of stuff. And by using or leveraging the dynamics of how social media works, we can identify which kinds of actions are the most effective, which ones go the most viral and have the most impact, and then spread that across the network to other organizers. So also kind of in a contrast to like other tools that are more kind of campaign sort of top-down driven. By having it be a connected network, we can quickly cross-pollinate what are the most effective things to do and who are the most effective organizers. So a volunteer, let's say in Michigan, might be following one thing for registering voters, but because we know they're doing that kind of activity, we can see that there's other activity happening over here by a different campaign and quickly help them see that. Just like you click on one picture of like cats on Instagram and are shown like thousands of pictures of cats, we can show you one voter registration action that, and then you might be able to help out like thousands of others and be much more effective that way. And then bringing all that effort together, so we're building like entire social graphs of not only organizers and activists, but also the people they're connected to and all those relationships and stuff like that. So the entire network can benefit from the collective effort of everyone involved in it.
That's great. And then are those users able to register to vote via Unified?
Yeah, so not only can you use Unified to check your own voter registration status, but you can check your contacts and anyone else you want to look up as well, right? So and on top of that, like I said, you can create your own voter registration drive within seconds. Just like the same effort it takes to tweet, you can spin up a voter registration drive using the templates we have. And then you can share that with your followers on Unified and elsewhere in other social media. So like you could put like a story up on Instagram and then post a link to a Unified action to register voters, and boom, you've got like a viral social campaign around voter registration.
Nice. And it's neat to see that it's connected to other social networks as well. Speaking of social networks, part of what's so important for getting one off the ground when it's early on is attracting a critical mass of subscribers onto the platform so that it can really have that maximum impact from everybody being in the same place, having conversations together. Can you share a little bit about how you're drawing that critical mass in, and if the organizing that you'll see on Unified is different from organizing on the Facebooks or Twitters of today?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think one of the funny answers to this question is that it comes down to organizing. So like, we have to be organizers ourselves to talk to other organizers and build communities around our product, our platform. So we do that in a number of ways. One of it is just talking to people, like, going to events and things like that and talking about what we're doing and get buy-in from that. We host our own events, like the one we did during South by, our GM event, which had like hundreds of people come in, build relationships with really prolific organizers. We had like Olivia Juliana, Wendy Davis, other folks throughout from across the country come in and speak to folks. We build relationships with those people. And then we do like direct outreach to campaigns and organizations. We're talking with a lot of the folks on this Zoom call here with their groups, and other groups across the country. So it's a mixed effort. There's no one easy solution to that. It's, like I said, it's organizing. So.
Nice. Well, Shion, thanks. I'm so excited to see Unified, the rise of Unified, and all of the great conversations and new approaches to organizing possible in a platform like what you're building. So keep us posted so we can all join when the time is right. Thanks. All right, so that was all of my questions for our panelists so far. And we do have some great questions coming into the chat as well. So we can move into a Q&A that I can kind of answer. I have a couple of questions for the panelists in general and then some questions from the crowd as well. But before we do, is there anything you wanted to know about HGL or any questions I can answer about our work?
Yeah, Hillary, you thought you were going to escape without answering some questions about your work. So can you explain a little bit more about what Higher Ground Labs is to the folks on this call, and talk about the process of choosing the companies that you're working with? Sorry, my internet might be lagging a little bit, so let me know if it's not coming through. Choosing the companies you're working with. I know you're working with everyone above and below me. And how you help choose your portfolio, what that thesis looks like, and what the work that you all are doing to build the progressive tech ecosystem is.
Yeah, sure. So Higher Ground Labs was founded in 2016 by Betsy Hoover and Shomik Duda after the election result went the way that it did. And we recognized that there was an innovation gap that had popped up again on our side of the aisle. And we wanted to help close that using a new approach. So we decided to deploy a traditional VC model of investing in early stage startups that were building tools for electoral organizing, voter registration, and other types of electoral work. Since then, we've deployed $40 million into over 50 startups, building tools that specifically service Democratic campaigns and candidates. And it's just been a real pleasure to meet all of these amazing founders, building great tools in close collaboration with ecosystem stakeholders. There's just such a close degree of collaboration here that ends up making our technology really effective, which I love to see. And the way that we help foster that collaborative hub through HGL is through an accelerator model. So every year we'll put out an open call and select a small batch of startups to put through kind of an intensive process where we help founders build their MVP and bring it to market. And then we help bring stakeholders and partners from the campaign and technology ecosystem who need these tools and help them find each other and start building from there. So the accelerator model is really fun every year. We actually just launched our open call for 2023 in case anybody out there has an idea for a piece of technology that they think could service the space we don't have yet. Check out our site because you might be one of our next founders.
And definitely encourage anyone on this call, if you have an idea, if your friends have an idea, please reach out. And if you need to get in touch with Hillary, get in touch with Field Team 6. We're happy to make that connection. Can you talk a little bit about your investment thesis for this cycle and sort of what you're looking for and what helps inform those decisions?
Yeah, so we form our investment thesis in close collaboration. We do dozens of interviews with partners across the state, the committees, campaigns, advocacy nonprofits, other founders and companies that are existing in the space. And we identify what are the latest innovations from the past cycle and what are ongoing gaps or pain points that campaigns or organizations are experiencing. From those interviews, we publish our landscape report every year, which we have coming out in a couple of weeks. And then we develop our investment thesis from there. Also, after big election cycles, we'll host an in-person debrief with about 300 highly experienced practitioners to talk through how it went, what we learned, and have a lot of that collaboration that sparks the new innovative ideas. So we just had our most recent one in January. That, our landscape report research, and all of our stakeholder conversations result in an investment thesis that guides our accelerator work for the year. This year, it's been really neat to see that since 2016, the political tech ecosystem has evolved and matured so significantly that the needs now are not just about new tools to do the thing, but really about how the mosaic is stitched together, right? And how data flows between different tools and technologies. How can we customize and ensure that down ballot campaigns and local campaigns are receiving tools that are appropriate for their budget capacity and training and their audience size? A lot of our focus on technology can tend to gravitate towards presidential top of ticket, which is so important. But there's 520,000 elected seats each cycle, right? So how can we make sure that we're recruiting and supporting campaigns down the ballot as well? We're also looking at interesting applications of AI for increased efficiency in campaigning. I think all of us on this call have experienced those pain points of the work that's extremely tedious and repetitive, and wish that we had ways that we could automate or augment what we're doing so that we could get the really boring stuff and repetitive stuff done quickly and focus on the things that are really key in our movements, like organizing and face-to-face conversations. So we're also looking at ways that AI can augment the existing work of content creation, other types of outputs that are appropriate within the context, that can really superpower the work of organizers on campaigns, so that they can focus on those interactions. So we're starting to see the applications trickle in, and we're really excited about what we're seeing so far, and would love to have any conversations with people who are kicking around ideas, because there's a very good chance that one of the next founders in our 2023 batch is on this call. So hope to meet you soon. So I'll go ahead and pop back into the panel from here. Before we move into group questions, and we'll have about 10 minutes here, I just want to ask each person for one or two sentences. What do you see as the future of organizing tech? Just one to two sentences, top of mind, no wrong answers. Shion, I'll start with you. I think you might be on mute, but yeah, Shion, what do you see as the future of organizing tech?
My hope is that we look for ways to empower individual volunteers and activists more directly. I think we're leaving a lot on the table right now in terms of giving tools directly to the individual and helping them build their own kind of local efforts. Right now, I think my opinion is that a lot of the work is too transactional in nature. It's like, we need this from you versus let's help you serve those around you.
Got it.
Like I said, organizing is best that way. I think we need to move towards that.
Thanks. Yeah. Cory, what do you see as the future of organizing tech?
It's something that you mentioned, which is the mosaic, stitching it all together. So the tech that I'm most excited about is the developments in moving data between outreach platforms and databases, making sure that it's clean, sort of being able to move things more efficiently, and being able to bring together all the tools that are being developed so that we can learn from all those different tools and be able to develop those in a more streamlined way.
Thanks. Naseem?
Yeah, I think, finding authentic ways to scale up organizing between both friends and families, but also larger communities where they are, whether physically or online, meeting people where they are. For us specifically, taking this kind of fun gamification approach and applying it to other use cases year round and early on in the cycle, not just kind of transactionally at the end, like Shion was saying.
Yeah, that long-term trust build. Nice. And Jeremy, what do you see as the future of organizing tech?
My shtick is that we need to push it down. We need to it needs to not be a top down, like one person decides and everybody else has to just set up a particular way of doing it. We need to give data and tools as far down as we can to people who live in their own neighborhoods and their communities. And I think things like Unified and Impactive are specifically doing that for your network, for the community that you're a part of. It's arming you with tools in your hands. And we're at CiviTech, what we're trying to do is to build ways to get all of the data that is known at the top into the hands of people who live in those neighborhoods. And in particular, one of our earliest tools, Map the Vote, was designed around this idea that you can just register people in your own neighborhood. This is it's available and accessible to you immediately. And we trust you to figure it out. That's, I think, the message that needs to happen. And to the point that Shion made earlier, reduce the transactional nature of campaigns. Don't exist right now. Like, many legal entities aren't there. They will come into being. They will hire up staff. They're not trying to do anything wrong here. It's just they only temporarily exist. And so we need to build, instead of having a presidential team parachute people into our states at the end, what we need to do is to build the muscles ourselves in our own communities and support that much more long term. And I think we need better tools to do that, because America's a very big country. There's a lot of moving parts. Computers are better at some things than people, and this is one of them, is storing a list on 300 million people and helping make it accessible to you. that should be a tool that is assisting you in supporting your own community. So I think I'm very interested in ways that we increasingly arm individuals with what they need, with better information, like on the ground, so they are a part of a larger team.
This is great. I hear a lot of themes of empowerment, building trust, organizing around the voter or the citizen's experience, and starting there. And this is just if anybody has any thoughts. Is there anything that the other side is doing that we could be learning from? Or do Republicans have any strategies that we haven't adopted on this side that could be relevant for our work?
I will.
I see a nod, Jeremy.
I saw Shion's hand go up first.
Okay, Shion, you want to start? I think you might be on mute.
Okay, I'll jump in for a second. Works on that. So something that we pay attention to what Republicans are doing. We're on their donor lists. We have people who feed us that information. We try to pay attention. There's two things I think that I note around this topic that Field Team 6 has convened all of us together around. Republicans have a better canvassing tool. Their system allows you to select your own turf or be assigned a turf from a group. So you are both empowered to work any day and any hour you want, or to join a big gathering and to go out as part of an organized targeting effort. And it allows you to put in information you see, like, does this person have a yard sign? Did you get to talk to them? Did you notice something? Like you can put more than just a survey question response. It really empowers their users. It can do voter registration, it can do GOTV, it can do all of this in one place, whereas we don't have anything like that. And I think that is a major failing. I think CiviTech has been working on this. We have parts of a whole. We hope to one day have a more complete option that's as good as what they do. But luckily, we have better volunteers. So the people who are out there, their tool would be a better fit for our community, and our tool would be a better fit for their community. And it's a weirdly perverse thing that each side built kind of for the wrong market. But I think that is something that I see that they have, and what they do is they disseminate data and tools to all of their candidates. Republicans have a great socialist model. Billionaires pay for the Republican Data Trust and the systems that they give for free to their candidates, so they will win elections as a team. We make it really hard. We have to have donors, small dollar donors, give money to organizations so that they can go buy tools and license them. And there are lots of rich people helping us too, right, to be clear. But it's, in general, the way our party disseminates the data, our party has become reliant on fees and licensing to be able to sustain themselves because not enough of us are giving to our institutions. And this is a major failing. We need to get more people to give money to groups like Field Team 6, to groups like state parties and county parties, so they aren't having to charge all their candidates. And I think that this is very important when you think about the fact that there are over 500,000 elected offices in America. We have over 100,000 elections this year, and something like 2,000 to 3,000 of them will end up using VAN and the general tools of our ecosystem. And on the Republican side, every single one of them could be competing against us with a unified, Jason's comment earlier, I believe, the unified field theory of data there. Like, we don't have one because we're not all working on the same sheet of music. And Republicans have pushed much harder on that, and they have unified that. And I think that is very smart. And they are doing things like, anytime you buy a red hat, a MAGA hat, that merchandise data is getting in their voter file. And did you sign up on a Facebook ad and click through on Win Red? That is going into the voter file. But on our side, our merchandise vendors and Act Blue and the party's data system don't talk to each other. And I think that this is a flaw. People are working on this, and but Republicans are ahead of us. They just have a harder, shittier product to sell than we do. And our policies are actually popular with Americans, and we should always remember that.
Well said, Jeremy. Thanks. All right, I'm going to go ahead and move us on, just with an eye on time, into some questions coming in. And one I do love. How are we going to get to full registration of all eligible voters? How are we going to get there?
I mean, I think that begins on the legislative level. I mean, like, obviously there's the organizing level of, going out and making sure that we're in every place that we can. But I think in terms of full registration, that's making sure that we're electing pro-voter, pro-democracy state legislatures that will pass automatic or opt-out voter registration that have stronger capacity there, which again, that begins with electing these pro-voter majorities. We're beginning to see that in places like California, New York, and even further afield. To me, that's sort of that's kind of the difficult path, but the only real one.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's like a policy thing in the end of the day, but I think we have to start at like the local level and communicate the need for electing those kind of folks. When you talk to folks who are not super engaged in the voting process right now, maybe regular voters, but not super engaged in the process, they're not aware of all those challenges that go into it. Like most of my friends have no clue about any of this stuff, right? And so just communicating and find the right messaging that's like, hey, there actually is friction in the voting process can be pretty eye-opening and get people to start voting or looking for folks that are like voting rights advocates.
Yeah, I'll jump in. I think the legislative level is key. I mean, I'd love to, essentially not have to do what we're doing that would be solved by just automatic voter registration, right? So we wouldn't have to do all this work. I mean, the reason we're working with influencers is because that's not an audience that's pulled off the voter file. It's a net new audience. It's younger, many folks who may not be registered or plugged in locally. And the reason CiviTech is building this massive unregistered database to reach people who aren't on that list. So we're coming up with all these kind of creative workarounds to solve a problem that's very solvable at the legislative level.
It's like that old adage about organizing ourselves out of a job. But in this case, there's plenty of other work to do. So we could immediately start working on others.
You should all put our company out of business. That would be a good outcome, okay, for America, just to be clear. One note on this is that there's no reason that we have to have voter registration. There are lots of countries that run a democracy and elections don't have voter registration. North Dakota does not have voter registration. They don't need it. There are other ways that the government knows who the citizens are. Voter registration was created because we were trying to limit who could vote. So we had so few people who could vote, like male white property owners, that we had to find a way to sign them up. This is a vestige of an earlier day that like we are all just like bought into now because it's been that way, but we don't have to accept that as being true. And we have control of tons of states where we could make that not true right now. And it is ridiculous. But in the paradigm that we all live in, we have to come up with ways right now as organizers to defeat the fact that these bad laws exist, and we have to overcome them. But the only way I think to get to 100% is by doing away, we need to make the percentage irrelevant, because any American citizen should be able to vote come election day. It should be that simple.
Hear, hear. I think that's a great place for us to pause too on that vision. When we get there, there's plenty of other work for us to do. But in the meantime, we'll be here registering people in record numbers using new tools, cycle over cycle, and continuing to share our wins and learning. So please join me in the chat in thanking our panelists so much for sharing your insights, for all of the hard work, the late nights, all of your teams that work tirelessly around the clock to provide these tools and support them. And just thank you for being great partners to Field Team 6, to HDL, and for the broader work that you provide to the ecosystem. Everybody in the group, please stay in touch with us. All of these organization and company contact info has been provided in the chat. Please do follow them. Stay in touch with us, HDL, Field Team 6, and have a great event today. There's so many great speakers coming up, great learnings, and more things to motivate us on the road ahead. So Cory, Jason, thank you so much for having me, and we'll see you in the future sessions.
Thank you so much. And I'm just going to wrap it up here in the next minute. Seriously, Hillary, Higher Ground Labs, you do seriously world-changing work. Same for all of you. Jeremy, Naseem, Shion, Cory, you know I love you. Seriously, it's so impressive. Thank you for your brilliant minds and your beautiful hearts. Also, never thought I would say this, but Jeremy, you're right. The whole country should be a lot more like North Dakota. So yes, now it's time for everybody to head back to the main stage for announcements and to choose your next event. We're posting the Zoom main stage link in the chat. There it is. We have a whole bunch of good stuff still to come. We got Brian Tyler Cohen, Paula Poundstone, Rep Gabe Vasquez, super organizers Sarah Jekyll and Jess Craven, newsletter writer Robert Hubble, world-changing entrepreneur Whitney Tilson, and so many more. So we're posting links in the chat also for our newsletter. Please sign up for that. It is chock full of goodness every week. It's full of hope and humor and events. Sign up for that today. And there's a link to our site where if you get dropped off of any Zoom.
1 second. Why, thanks.
AI intruding. If you get lost, you get dropped off a Zoom, you can always go to fieldteam6.org. Right on the front page, we have our list of links to get you to the Zoom you need to be in. And yeah, one of those links we're dropping is a link to all our volunteer opportunities. Remember, today there are 19 days left until the critical Supreme Court election in Wisconsin. Eyes on the prize. Let's make that count. Do the Protasewicz blitz. Get Janet Protasewicz elected. Flip that court to liberal. All right, we'll see you on the main stage in a second. We're going to keep this room open until everyone transfers over to there. But that link is in the chat. All right. Thank you for an amazing panel. Seriously, incredible.
Thanks to all of your work, Jason, Field Team 6. This is a great event.
Yeah, thank you, Jason.
Hey, this is Cory's idea. This is Cory's brainchild.
Love it, Cory.
Well done. Thank you. See you in the main room.
All right, excellent. See you back there.
Thanks, everyone.